Hello and welcome to today's getAbstract webinar with the very challenging title, Crunch Time: How to be at your best when it matters most. My name is Ramona from getAbstract. I'm your host today, and one of our speakers today is the leadership expert, Rick Peterson. Rick's co-author on Crunch Time. Chet Hoekstra has business commitments that made it not possible for him to be here today. But I'm very happy to announce that Rick's business partner and collaborator on the book, executive leadership coach Lelia O'Connor, will join him on Jet's behalf. Lelia has been teaching reframing in business for over 25 years now. So it's nice to have you guys. Hi, Rick and Lelia.
Hi, great to be
Hey,
here.
how's everybody doing?
It's good to have
Great
you.
to be here. It's our pleasure.
So in today's hyper-competitive world, we are all facing significant pressure to perform. Unfortunately, often we get in our own way and sabotage our performance. Everybody knows that. So Rick coached world-class athletes to be at their best when it matters most. Now he shares his insight with business leaders. And in this webcast today, you will learn the secret skill used by clutch performers to override their own fear, worry, and doubt. Also, you will learn that this skill is available to everyone. Yes, everyone out there who's listening today has that skill. And also, you will learn how to use the skill in any pressure situation. So please use the comment function to ask questions. I'm joined by my colleague Sandra Holt from our learning consultant team at getAbstract, and she will help to answer your questions in our chat. Rick and Lelia will also answer some of your questions in our Q&A section at the end of their presentation. Of course, you can find a summary of Crunch Time in our getAbstract library. At the end of this webinar, you will also receive further information on getAbstract and our service. So, okay, let's get started. Hereby, I give the word to our speakers. Enjoy, everybody.
We're so grateful for this opportunity and privilege to share with you the secrets of how elite athletes and elite business people perform their best under pressure. Crunch Time: How to be your best when it matters most is all about the ability to reframe a pressure situation, literally push the pause button and ask yourself, what's my opportunity? And what we've understood for studying this human behavior for all these years and coaching elite athletes and all-stars and Cy Young Award winners is the fact that it allows you to really develop, so to speak, the mind of the corporate athlete, because the skill sets that these elite athletes have to perform their best under pressure are exactly the same skill sets that the top elite business leaders have. It's the ability to literally look at opportunities, look at solutions, and overcome problems, overcome setbacks and failures. So at this time, I'd like to introduce my business partner, who has coached for 25 years, or coached over 25 years as an executive coach, has coached the mental game and mindfulness practice for over 20 years, and has been a master coach to help her clients perform their best and reframe pressure situations to shift it from a threat to an opportunity. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Lelia O'Connor.
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you. We're really feel privileged to be able to share the tips from the book about reframing pressure, and really give you some tools that you can apply today, as soon as today, to your daily work life. And the response from the book has been really extraordinary, and it's been a labor of love. And we continue to get emails from people who've read the book and writing us, telling us the difference that the book has made in their life and in their work lives as well. And so one of our favorite stories was from an Army vet who was in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he suffered really severely from post-traumatic stress syndrome. And he tried many therapies to help him to deal and manage with the stress syndrome, and even medications. But when he read the book, he wrote that he learned how to reframe this situation, and then was able to, see it in a completely different way. And his relationship to that trauma, really shifted. And he said for the first time in his life for a long time, he's actually experiencing a sense of peace. So this book has really made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. And so today we want to give you some tools that hopefully will make a difference in your life too, in your lives too. So let's talk about the state of pressure and what the cost of pressure is in the workplace. So as Rick said, I've been an executive coach, leadership coach for over 25 years now, and I've been in hundreds of organizations over the years. And I've seen an increasing amount of pressure and stress in the workplace, and it's very alarming to me. And so I'm on a personal mission to help us all. I mean, I face pressure myself, but help us all to be able to have the skills and the habits and attitudes to really work with pressure in a skillful way, so that it doesn't become stress. It doesn't become something that is unmanageable or becomes chronic. As we can see here in the middle bullet point here, $190 billion annually is cost in U.S. healthcare on workplace stress. Organizations lose millions of dollars every year because of employees struggling with pressure. And companies are at risk of losing their most talented and hardworking employees, not for the lack of engagement, but because of high stress and burnout, according to Harvard Business Review. So it affects our affects us personally, affects us our teams, but also organizationally the amount of pressure that is really impacting. So we want to make a difference there. So how pressure affects our mind and our body. So this is true for everyone, not just some people. It's how elite athletes, elite business people, people who are in very high profile positions who are dealing with a lot of pressure, and then people who maybe don't have that much pressure in their life on a daily basis, but how pressure affects our mind and body is universal. So this handsome guy over here on the left, we call him the caveman. So those of you who've read the book or read the getAbstract summary, you're familiar with the caveman. So the caveman is the primal part of our brain that gets triggered when we're under pressure. And what triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response. And this part of our brain actually can protect us. If we were to walk across the street and there was a car coming, our caveman would get activated, and that fight, flight, or freeze would actually protect us and save our lives. But what happens is that for many of us, the threats that we experience on a daily basis in our modern lives aren't really life-threatening, but we experience them as life-threatening. So the other, and we have the ability to shift that caveman, part of our brain and caveman response to what we call the conscious thinker. That's the thinker, the part of our brains where we can make choices and we can respond in the way that we want to respond, not reacting in a habitual, oftentimes negative way. And then we can see the opportunities that are in front of us. So as we can see here, when we're under threat, it harms our performance. Maybe we don't say the things that we want to say. Maybe we respond out of a frustration or out of anger, and we feel like we have little or no control. What comes into our mind and our minds is fear, worry, and doubt. That's the times when your hands start to sweat, your heart starts to beat, you start to get dry mouth, your thoughts are racing. So this is when the cortisol, the stress hormone, floods our system, and we get this body reaction. And then we're focused oftentimes on, I'm going to fail, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. All these thoughts race into our mind, and then we want to, avoid looking bad. So when we shift that, though, to opportunity, we'll see that opportunity and make a choice, shift out of the caveman response into the conscious thinker. Obviously, it helps our performance. We're in control. We say, I can do this. I'm prepared. I can handle this. I'm going to do a great job. We're confident. We're focused. This is when the hormone, the feel-good hormone, dopamine, then floods our system, calms down the mind. We're able to focus, and we're able to perform our best. So how do we get there? How do we make that shift? So we talk about the skill of reframing. So reframing, if we practice reframing, and every single one of us here has the ability to learn how to do a reframe. And I tell you, it's a life-altering skill, the ability to reframe. And So the definition of it, the skill of consciously thinking about a situation in a new or different way to change how you interpret that situation, then the actions that you take, and then the results that you achieve. So you can think of reframe like a radio station. So we get in our cars, maybe we listen to the radio when we're commuting to work. We've got our preset stations on, and we're listening to those stations, all the time. And so we get into the car and that radio station's on, maybe we're listening to jazz or rock, and that station's on, and we're not really paying attention. Then all of a sudden we become aware of that station, and we say, I don't want to listen to that anymore. I'm going to change the station. So reframing is kind of like that. You become aware of the habitual beliefs or assumptions or negative ways of thinking about yourself or situations, and you say, I don't want to think that way. I want to change the station in my mind. So let me walk you through how this process works. I love this slide because it really shows clearly how we can shift from the caveman response to the conscious thinker. So let's just picture a scenario. You're working on a project at work, and everything's going great. You're working with your colleagues, and things are moving on target, and you're getting the results you want. And then you complete the project successfully, and then you discover that your coworker took credit for the project. So look in the bottom middle of the screen. We see that hairy green guy there. That's the caveman. In this situation, for most of us, the caveman kicks in. You've worked endless hours. You've taken so much pride in this project, and you discover that your coworker took credit for that project. The caveman kicks in. We're now in threat mode. We're going counterclockwise here. We go up to fight. I either want to fight in this situation with my coworker or the people involved. Flight, I want to run away, or I freeze. I don't know what to do. There's a release of the stress chemical, cortisol, flooding through our system. And we are at a crossroads where we either react in an habitual way out of the caveman, either through whatever the negative response could be if we have this really strong caveman response. But then we can make a choice. So I think we've all had situations that are similar to this, maybe not that exact one, but then we see, okay, I don't want a negative outcome in this situation. I need to pause, step back, create some space, take a few deep breaths, maybe 100 deep breaths, depending upon our response, and then ask ourselves, what's my opportunity? I want to make a choice here, and I want to make a good choice that's going to be helpful for my career in this situation. So then we shift, we get up in the middle of the top of the screen here, reframe as opportunity. Then over to the right of the screen, then we see when we start to make this pause and make a choice, then we're releasing the good hormone called dopamine. That's now flooding through our system. We now can think more creatively, creative solutions. How am I going to handle this situation? How am I going to respond to this situation? We're more calm, we're more confident, and then maybe we decide to sit down with our colleague and ask them, why did that happen, or who knows the response, but you'll have the much more positive response because you'll be in your conscious thinker, not you're responding instead of reacting. And then this, of course, determines the actions and results and lead to your desired outcome. So learning to respond instead of react is a key to reframing. And so we want to ask ourselves, what's the quality of our mind at work? Is my mind working at its best today? So that's a question that we can ask ourselves on an ongoing basis and really bring that awareness to how are we responding to everything that's happening in our work day. So stopping, creating some space and time. Okay, so I know everyone in the audience here are primarily Americans. I'm American. Americans pride themselves on being really super busy, being the A-type personality, and being incredibly productive. So, but I want to offer a suggestion and a tool that gives an incredible amount of effectiveness to us that oftentimes is not overlooked in our culture, and that's stop, create some space and time. If you look at athletes, they never train and perform 365 days out of the year. They train a certain period of time, then they perform a certain period of time, and then they rest and they recover and they take time off to recover their mind and their body. Well, us in business, we oftentimes don't do that. I mean, I know many clients who work on their vacations. They're taking their laptops with them. They're constantly on their smartphones, working while on vacation. And it doesn't allow the body and the mind to really rejuvenate and create some space and time. So breathing also is an incredible practice. Those of you who practice yoga, you know the importance of the breath to slow down the mind, slow down the body. Reflect, watch your mind, watch the thoughts, watch the habitual habits that kick us into this caveman response. Go for a walk, take a break, then really choosing how we want to respond, not reacting. So one reframe that I really love and I use all the time is shifting from I have to I get to. I'm sure everyone can relate to this one. So oftentimes, many times, I shouldn't say oftentimes, many times we're in this mode of I have to get this project done. I have to get this deadline in. I have to meet my numbers. I have to go to the gym. But if we shift this to I get to, then we're already seeing the opportunity in it. I get to go to work today. I get to make a difference today. I get to use my mind in a creative way. I get to help my colleagues. I get to offer a service that's making a difference in my community or in the world. I get to go to the gym because I get to be more healthy and my heart rate's better. I get to get a paycheck. So that's one simple reframe. I have to I get to. Our conscious thinker. Shifting into the conscious thinker is where our choices live. And those choices will always give us better results in our work life than when we're in the reaction mode, in the caveman mode. And every moment we can choose our thoughts, every single moment. But the key is the awareness on those thoughts. So mindfulness is one of the hottest topics in business right now. And so many companies, Fortune 500 companies, all kinds of companies are teaching mindfulness in the workplace, as well as teams. The NBA, the NFL, the MLB, soccer leagues are all teaching elite athletes mindfulness training. And there's a good reason why. I've been actually a pioneer in mindfulness. I've been teaching mindfulness in the workplace for 20 years. And our culture has become increasingly distracted and full. Our minds are so full of social media, work demands, constantly being on, hyper-connected. Our phones are dinging all the time, distracting us. So as we see on the left side of the screen, mind is full. All of our minds are so full of all this stuff that's going on and coming at us all the time. So mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness really helps us to slow down, create some space so that we can actually be in the present moment. And for many of us, we're not in the present moment very often. So if you think about you're sitting at your desk and you're working, but when you're sitting at your desk working, you're thinking about playing golf. And then when you're out playing golf, you're thinking about having dinner with your husband. And then when you're having dinner with your husband, you're thinking about playing golf. So many of us, this is what happens. We're in a situation, that calls for us to be in the present moment, but we're thinking about all kinds of other things. So I'd like to read to you the definition of mindfulness. I really like this definition. So mindfulness is the practice of maintaining a non-judgmental state of heightened or complete awareness of our thoughts, emotions, feelings, experiences on a moment-to-moment basis. So it's present moment awareness. So, many of you might think, oh, this is airy-fairy stuff, but really our mind determines our actions. And when we have awareness of the thoughts and the feelings and the experiences we have, then we always have a choice. Or do we want to respond in that way or act out of that? And so those people who have greater awareness of our thoughts and our feelings and being in the present moment, we're more focused and we make better decisions. And there's all kinds of research on that. We don't have time to go into the research right now, but there's all kinds of research on people making better decisions and having better relationships, all kinds of workplace statistics. So this quote is by Steve Jobs. He talks about mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness. So, you know that he's the CEO, founder of Apple Computers. And when he got sick, he started practicing mindfulness. I call it relaxed concentration, and the difference that it made in his life. So I'm going to read this to you. So just while I'm reading this, if you just take a moment and kind of, just think about what this experience would be like for you. If you just sit and observe, you will see how your mind is. If you try to calm it, it only makes it worse. But over time, the mind does calm. And when it does, there's more room to hear the more subtle things. It's when your intuition starts to blossom and you start to see things in your life more clearly and be in the present moment. And then the mind slows down and you see a tremendous, expanse in the moment. You see so much more than you could before. It's a discipline and you have to practice it. So I want to encourage everyone to ask yourself, what is the quality of my mind at work? Is my mind working at its best? And try on reframing. So now I'm going to hand over to Rick, and Rick's going to share some of the stories of the elite athletes that he's coached over the years and how they have reframed pressure. Rick?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lelia. That was absolutely tremendous. Now that we understand literally what a reframe is and how to get our mind calm and some of the practices of reframing, what we'd like to share now are some really tremendous stories of elite performers in high pressure situations and how they dealt with the pressure situation to shift it from a threat to an opportunity. So when you're under crunch time pressure, laughter is the best medicine. Well, I had the privilege of being a pitching coach for the Oakland A's during the Moneyball year, chronicled by Michael Lewis's best-selling book, Moneyball, and the Academy-nominated movie starring Brad Pitt. So during that time, we had a run of 4 consecutive playoff runs. We had one of the lowest payrolls in all of baseball. Thus Michael Lewis called it Moneyball. Well, Jason Isringhausen, known as Izzy, was our all-star closer. So in the midst of one of our championship seasons, we go into Yankee Stadium for a huge series, and with a 1-run lead in the bottom of the 9th inning, we bring in Izzy to close the game out. Well, first pitch to Bernie Williams, home run. Tie game. First pitch to David Justice, home run, we lose, 3-2. Izzy was absolutely devastated. Well, the next day, he comes to me in the locker room and he said, Rick, I need to talk to you. I said, yeah, sure, what's going on? He said, no, I really need to talk to you. I said, yeah, no problem. So we go out in the back room. He said, I can't go back out there tonight. I can't do this right now. I need a few days. I said, Izzy, we all have setbacks. This is not your first setback, but your opportunity for a setback is now to prepare your mind for a comeback. So we'll give you a few days, just relax and we'll get prepared. And when you're ready, we'll get you back in there. Well, several days later, we have a big win. And Izzy comes up to me after the game in the locker room. He says, hey, listen, I'm the closer on this team. That's my job. I want my job back. I said, hey, welcome back. Great to see you again. We'll get you in there tonight. Well, he got in there that night, got the save, and picked up right where he left off as an all-star closer. Now, fast forward, we go into Yankee Stadium for the postseason. Crunch time, the Big Apple. There's no place like Yankee Stadium in the postseason. Well, we have a huge win in the first game, and in game number 2, with a 2-run lead, we bring in Izzy to close the game out. Well, he's got to go through Bernie Williams and David Justice. Well, Bernie leads off with a double, a slight improvement from last time, and then he walks Tino Martinez. After walking Tino Martinez, Jason Giambi runs over from first base to talk to Izzy. Well, I'm sitting in the dugout, and I didn't really care for the interaction, so I went out to talk to Izzy. I went to the mound. So in front of 50,000 people in Yankee Stadium on international television, I get to the mound, I put my hand on Izzy's shoulder, and as I do, I feel him literally quivering. He's shaking. I said, Izzy, are you okay? He said, Rick, I can't feel my legs. I said, yeah, but the good news is we don't need your legs to kick a field goal. We need your arm to make a pitch. Well, Giambi cracked up laughing, and you can see in the picture, Izzy at least started to smile. Well, I knew that once he started to smile, now anxiety and stress started to be reduced from his body. I could see the look in his eyes, the look of confidence. I could feel the fact that he was ready to do this. He was prepared. I said, Izzy, you're an all-star. You're prepared to do this. Simply hit the glove, one pitch at a time, and you'll be fine. One pitch at a time, hit the glove, Izzy. Well, he strikes out Posada. David Justice pops up, and Scott Brocious pops up to close out the game. It was a huge win for the Oakland A's, and it was a huge moment for Izzy to overcome fear, worry, and doubt. And it was laughter that allowed him to relax. So now the crunch time tips. Understanding the fact that laughter reduces stress and anxiety. Number two, really think about what makes you laugh. What triggers that response that makes you laugh? What kind of humor do you like? You know, whether it's your favorite joke, you know, whether it's a movie scene, whether it's a TV show, you know, maybe something that happened in your personal life with your kids, you know, something that really makes you laugh. And lastly, make a playlist of images and videos on your smartphone that make you laugh. So when you're ready to go into a big presentation or a big game or a big exam and you feel this anxiety, take out your smartphone and have a couple laughs. It's impossible to feel stress and anxiety when you're laughing, and laughter will help you reduce that. Reframe number two. Crunch time performers have the skill to reframe doubt into confidence. We all experience fear, worry, and doubt. As Lelia was talking about earlier, what happens to the mind when we feel that fear, worry, and doubt? You know, the dry mouth, the sweaty palms, the heart's beating through our chest. But literally, let's think about this. What is fear, worry, and doubt? Fear, worry, and doubt is a lack of preparation, a lack of talent, a lack of knowledge, and a lack of insight. So in that moment where you start to feel that caveman response, ask yourself, am I prepared for this? Do I have the talent for this? Do I have the knowledge? And do I have the insight? Well, here's Tom Brady, one arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. Just went to the Super Bowl for the 9th time 2 days ago, won it for the 6th time, the only player in the history of the NFL to win 6 Super Bowls. But in Super Bowl 51, when he won his 5th Super Bowl, at halftime, they were down 21 points to the Atlantic Falcons. They were being devastated, a humiliating potential defeat. As they walked into the locker room, everybody's heads were down, everybody's sighing. You know, this embarrassment, this great New England Patriot team with great quarterback and great coach just being devastated by 21-point deficit. Well, Brady walks up and calls his teammates over. Hey, everybody over here. Hey, guys, listen, we have the opportunity to have the greatest Super Bowl win of all time, the greatest comeback Super Bowl history of all time. Do your job. We're prepared for this. We have the talent, we have the knowledge, and we have the insight to prepare our best in this second half. One play at a time, everybody get focused and do your job and give ourselves the opportunity to have this great comeback. Well, long story short, it was the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. They overcome that deficit, and it really all had to do with reframing doubt into confidence. So now the crunch time tips. When you're in that moment of fear, worry, and doubt, really recall the countless hours of preparation that you put into this opportunity. And you start to think like, geez, I'm prepared for this. I've spent so many hours to do this. I deserve to win. I actually deserve to win. Number two, travel back in time. Go back in a place where you had these awful feelings, that caveman response, but you were able to push the pause button and shift it from a threat to an opportunity. And you were able to overcome fear, worry, and doubt, and to literally perform at your best. And lastly, remember, all the people that believe they can and all the people that believe they cannot are both right. Your mind is your master and your body is your servant. Your body will follow your mind. This is Tom Watson, the former CEO of IBM. Elite crunch time performers know how to reframe failure into a learning opportunity. We all have setbacks and failures in life and in business. And in businesses that are innovative, you are really at the risk of setbacks and failures because you're never going to get this right the first time. It's built into the culture. But typically, when we have this caveman response and we have this failure, we have this embarrassing setback, our mind goes into this place. I'm so stupid. What was I thinking? I'm an idiot. How could I possibly blow this? If our minds were literally broadcast over loudspeakers for everyone to hear, people would think that we're crazy. We would possibly be institutionalized. Again, the opportunity for a setback is to prepare for a comeback. And in life, it's not necessarily what you accomplish in life, but literally how you handle adversity and the setbacks and defeats and the failures to be able to get back on your feet. Well, in the midst of this huge sales cycle with IBM, one of their key employees made a mistake and cost the company a $10 million project. The next day, Tom Watson said, "I want you in my office at 1 o'clock sharp." Well, the employee walked in and said, "Tom, I guess you're either asking for my resignation or you're going to fire me, right?" Tom said, "Are you kidding me? We just invested $10 million in your personal development. Now that you've had this wisdom and experience and understand how to overcome this setback and failure, that be better next time, you are now one of our most valuable employees, and we have incredibly high expectations for you in the future." So the crunch time tips: ask yourself, what did I learn? Literally sit down after you've had this setback or failure and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Number two, how can I prevent this from happening again? Now you need to go back and to look at your process of your preparation. Ask yourself, were there some blind spots that I didn't see as I was preparing for this opportunity? Are there things that maybe I just really wasn't quite prepared for as I look back on this? And it's okay if the answer is yes, and it's okay to make a mistake. It's not okay to continue to make the same one. So now that goes back to, let's look at our preparation and let's see if we can prepare at a higher level. And lastly, and this is most important, develop a growth mindset. This really comes from the work from Carolyn Dweck about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. People who have growth mindsets at every stage of their life, that's why you see, Ronald Reagan becoming president at 70 years old. You see people doing these amazing accomplishments late in their life. Why? Because they continually have a growth mindset to constantly reframe pressure situations and reframe situations in their life to constantly grow and to improve those opportunities. Serena Williams, one of the greatest female athletes of all time, not only greatest female athletes of all time, but one of the most great corporate athletes. I mean, what she's worth off the court for what she's accomplished in business is unbelievable. And her reframe in life is that pressure is a privilege. Here's the woman who holds the open era in tennis of recording 23 Grand Slam titles. And she looks at the ability that performing under pressure is a privilege and an opportunity. And she understands that in those pressure situations, it's great to have butterflies. It's good to have butterflies, but we need to push the pause button and make sure those butterflies fly in formation right towards the opportunity and right towards the solution. She embraces the opportunity to be a role model for performing your best under pressure. She understands that pressure allows her to have the environment that she can fully untap her personal potential. So the crunch time tips: doing meaningful work is a privilege. So all of us that have really these high pressure jobs and understand that we're in this pressure cooker all the time, this is an incredible privilege that we can demonstrate how we've prepared at an incredibly high level and how we've developed our personal development, that we can bridge the gap between performance and potential. And lastly, a quote from Serena: "It's a privilege to be in a situation where you have that pressure as opposed to not having that pressure, because now with all the money on the table, I can demonstrate how I can be the best when it matters most." The secret to performing your best under pressure is to be over-prepared. Well, I had the privilege of being a major league pitching coach for 15 years and coached for 30 plus years. But as a young coach, before I got to the big leagues, as a young coach with the Chicago White Sox, Michael Jordan, one of the most famous international athletes of all time, and again, not only on the court, but off the court, and one of the most successful business people of all time. And he understood that talent does not equal performance, but preparation equals performance. Well, I got to know Michael very well during that time, which was an incredible privilege for myself. And I had the opportunity to ask Michael, I said, Michael, was there like ever a moment, like a real moment in your life that you realized like, holy geez, like I'm MJ, I'm Michael Jordan? He said, Rick, ironically, there was. He said, Coach Smith, who was his coach in college, made it very clear to me that I was the most talented athlete, most talented basketball player of our era. And he said, Michael, I want you to watch this videotape. And he put together videotape of his freshman year and sophomore year and put together segments of practice sessions and game footage, and he scrambled them. And he said, I want you to tell me what year each clip is from. So he went through the process, sophomore, freshman, freshman, sophomore. Afterwards, Coach Smith said, Michael, what's your takeaway? And he said, you know what? I realized that from coach's input and feedback that I have some of the greatest talent of all time. And in my freshman year, I made the last basket to win the national championship. And I realized that I prepared great that year. And I had a great year. My sophomore year, we made it to the Final Four and lost. But I realized that, you know what? I had a really, really good year that year, but I prepared really, really good. And I understood that in order for me to be MJ, one of the greatest players of all time, that I had to prepare great. And I understood that preparation equals performance. And I understood that there's an incredible price to be best. It doesn't come cheaply. Unfortunately, it doesn't go on sale. There's no coupons. You can't go to Target. You can't go to Walmart. You can't go to Marshall's. You have to pay full price every day to be over prepared. So the next time you have a board meeting or a job interview, a presentation, or a big sales pitch, understand that if you're over prepared, it will eliminate fear, worry, and doubt. Number two, it gives you supreme confidence. And what question people ask all the time, what comes first, success or confidence? They have a relationship, but what comes first is being over prepared. Because when we're over prepared, we have the confidence to succeed. And lastly, it relaxes your mind to be present in the moment. And when our mind is relaxed and present in the moment, the research indicates that's when we can prepare, that's when we perform our best under pressure. So remember, when life gets hard, when life gets difficult, when we're in that face of fear, worry, and doubt, remind yourself that diamonds are made under pressure. The diamond mind is the mind that performs best in crunch time. Thank you so much.
Hey, Leela, Rick, thank you very much for this great session. Now we have some time for questions and answers. And actually, one question from Ahmed, who is in our audience. He turned in that question even before, upon the invitation to the webinar. One question from him is, how should one improve when they know that their skill set, their creativity, their analytical skills, thinking, etc., is below when compared with their peers? How should one improve?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say, how do you know that your skills are below your peers? You know, sometimes we evaluate ourselves much less than other people would evaluate us, and the fear, worry, and doubt, or I'm not good enough, or you know, I'm not as good as my colleagues. You know, that inner dialogue becomes the way that we evaluate ourselves. So I would suggest doing getting some feedback from your colleagues, from your boss, maybe some mentors that you have or coaches that you have, and ask them specific feedback about how you perform or what your skill set is. And maybe, you know, when you do with your colleagues, how it compares with all your other colleagues. Then you'd have, I think, have a more accurate assessment about how you compare to your colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, let me just also add to that. And then let's say you are below par compared to your colleagues and your peers, you know, then you build a program and a process, you know, no different than if, let's say you had a goal that you were 20 pounds overweight. Let's get a program and a process that we can come back and reevaluate this, like say over a 2-month period, and see how you've made progress. So as Leela said, if you get objective feedback from people, from your bosses, and then have a measurement, and then also set a process and a program so that you can improve in those skill sets.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. Thank you. There is another question from the chat, a recent question. In your book Crunch Time, you described the learned optimism. Our listener is asking, what exactly do you mean with that? What is that concept of learned optimism?
Learned optimism literally is the case where as you start to prepare for, let's say, a job interview and or an exam, whatever it is that your skill set is that you're preparing for, that once you know that you developed a process to prepare, you know that once I go through this process, that I'm totally confident that when I come into this situation, I'm prepared. So let's say it's an exam that you're going to take, like let's say it's your boards to get your law degree, for example. You talk to people and you find out who's been really successful in this, and you find out what their process was and how they studied, and you know that if you study this way, that I go in with learned optimism. I've learned how to design a program and a process and a preparation that when I come into a situation, I now have learned to be optimistic, because I expect myself that when I'm over prepared, I expect myself to do well. I demand of myself to do well because I deserve to.
Mm-hmm. So you
Yeah, and I'd
basically
like to go ahead.
trick yourself into a good performance.
Well, that's a good point, Ramona, because we do have to trick ourselves, if we want to use that word, because it takes no effort to be negative. It takes no effort at all. Just watch our minds when we wake up on a Monday morning, the racing thoughts of, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to get out of bed, or I have to, or all the negative thoughts that flood all of our minds on a pretty regular basis. And it really doesn't take any effort to go there, but it takes effort to be optimistic. It takes effort to be in a positive place and to think in a positive way. And so the learned optimism is really applying that effort, the effort to think the thoughts that are going to give you a more empowering outlook on your work, on yourself, the thoughts that are going to give you confidence, and your ability to do whatever it is at the task that's at hand. So it's learned optimism. It's really training the mind to be in a state of optimism, and everyone can do that.
And I can
And it's not only
imagine.
learned, it's not, but it's only, excuse me, it's not only learned optimism, but it's learned practice. Because
Yeah.
realistically, let me go back to the analogy. If you were 20 pounds overweight and your diet was terrible, the chance, and you don't have any physical setbacks or limitations, realistically, if you clean up your diet and you get a great workout program, realistically, you have the learned optimism to realize that if I follow this program for the next 2 months, I'm going to be in considerably best shape, much better shape than I am today. But it has to do with practice, a daily practice. And your mind is the same way.
Yeah, what I want to say before is that when you make a habit out of it, it also becomes easier. Making a habit out of positivism makes it easier. So in the end, it's not that big an effort anymore.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, there is another question from Alyssa, and she is asking, when your schedule is super packed and you don't have the ability to create space or time to prepare, how do you prioritize? How do you stay confident?
Yeah, I would say that taking the time to pause and reflect on what are the priorities. And I mean, there's, in the workplace is always many, many, many conflicting priorities. But taking that time to, instead of just jumping into, action, but really taking some time, maybe it's in the morning, you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes before you get to your office, or when you sit down at your desk to just, make an intention that you're going to do the best you can today, and you're going to focus on the things that, matter the most when it's presented to you. It's when we get into the racing mode, the racing thoughts and the racing habits and the stress of how am I ever going to get all this done, that's when it gets, kind of painful, right? So I think that taking on a regular basis, stepping back and planning, focusing can be really helpful on a daily basis.
What's really amazing when you look at the research of human performance, what I think is incredible, this practice of taking this time when you say like your schedule is just like so maxed out that you just don't have the time. Most people think of taking this break, it has to be a 15, 20 minute, 25 minute break or a long walk. But research is really interesting. For example, in tennis, that like 15, 20, 25 seconds in between points, the coaches that train the mental game for the tennis players have them in that 20 seconds to literally have their mind take a break. Like they start to focus on fixing the strings on the racket, for example, or they'll maybe adjust their shoe or tug on their pants or their skirt, or they have a little routine that their mind gets away totally from where that tennis match is, and then when it's ready for the next point, their mind locks back in. The same thing in golf. Jack Nicklaus, one of the greatest golfers in the world of all time, talks about the fact that in between shots, he literally goes into jazz mode. He goes to like his favorite jazz tunes. And so he takes a total break in between shots to come back to this. So in an office setting, even if you have a routine that you could just even if it's 3 minutes, 2 minutes for that matter, and something, that allows you to relax, maybe it's a song, something that really allows your mind to take that break and take a space. And if you can get in that maybe 2-minute habit, like say every hour and a half, everybody has at least 2 minutes, because if you have to go to the bathroom, you certainly can do that at that particular time, but just to develop a habit where if you're that hyper, scheduled, that if you just take those 2 minutes, like every hour, hour and a half, it just really helps give your mind that space.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I would say one final question. There are many more, but I will make sure to provide those to you, Rick and Leela, so you can answer them like in written format after the webinar. For now,
Okay.
one final question. So the question is from Jill. She is asking, when interviewing a potential new employee, what kind of questions would you recommend asking to feel out the person's positivism or the person's confidence? How would you realize that person that is sitting in front of you is, generally speaking, a confident person?
Great question. Well,
great question.
Maybe you would ask them, so this isn't definitive, I'll think about it more if I have more to respond to this, but I would say ask them how they handle pressure. Ask them if they've been in a new business presentation or doing a presentation to their board or to a sales team or some way where they've been in a pressure situation in their work life, and how did they handle it? What was the time that they handled it the best, that they got the most positive outcome? Mm-hmm. So how someone handles pressure and adversity is a really good test of how disciplined they are to think in a positive way and to be resilient. So I would ask some questions like that about how they handle adversity, pressure.
I think one other major point, if we all look at our lives and think back at a time that something really devastating, it was a devastating setback for us, regardless of whether it was in business or in family or in life, regardless of what it was in sports, but some setback that it was a devastating defeat. And you start to think about at that time when that happened, you're like going, gosh, how am I gonna get over this? And then you look back and realize, you know what? That was one of the greatest learning moments in my life. That totally shifted my life and shifted to another direction. I'm going to go back to Michael Jordan when you think about this, because he talks about you want to know how to handle defeat. Get cut from your high school basketball team 2 years in a row. If Michael Jordan didn't have the mind of a champion, you imagine the average person who gets cut from their high school basketball team 2 years in a row. You might start to think like, geez, what am I doing? Maybe I'm not good enough. Let me go do something else. But he had that supreme belief in himself. So I think if you ask questions like, what was one of the biggest setbacks in your life, and how did you handle that, and how does that lead you to where you are today, that'll give you a clear path on their personal attitude towards setbacks and failures and how they can rebound from that.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick. Thank you also, Leela, for all the things that you said today. One thing which really stood out for me, which I just want to say again, is doing meaningful work is a privilege. That's a beautiful sentence, and that's definitely something that I will recall from today's webinar, and that I will remember next time that I'm under pressure. It's a privilege that we are all in such meaningful jobs and in good positions. So time is almost up. Thank you again.
That meaning is what we bring to it. The job in itself doesn't have the meaning. It's our perception of it. So I love what you said, Ramona.
Right. I'll conclude because it's one of my personal mission statements. The quality of a person's life is to truly make a difference in someone else's in a positive way. And we had this privilege today, and we're grateful for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to return this. Thanks for being here today. Thanks to our audience. And before we end this webinar, I would like to give the word to my colleague Sandra. So goodbye from my side. Bye, Rick. Bye, Lelia. And yeah.
Bye. Thanks so much. It was great being with you all.
Thank you. This is Sandra.
Also, a big thank you from the team of learning consultants at getAbstract for this very interesting and useful webinar. We assume many of the people that are joining today have already access to getAbstract via the organization, and we wanted to take a few moments to just quickly speak about the getAbstract offer for business clients. getAbstract is the leading online provider of compressed knowledge. Our mission is to find, rate, summarize relevant knowledge and make it available to our customers at the point of need and at the speed of business. Our platform contains more than 18,000 summaries of top non-fiction books, video talks, and articles for you to read or listen to. We aim to make this as simple for you as possible, so the library can be accessed via web, mobile app, or even synchronized with an e-reader, giving you access anytime, anywhere. For everyone who is using getAbstract via our corporate account and who would like to have more information about our features and service, please contact us at corporate@getabstract.com. If your company doesn't have a corporate subscription yet, we would love to hear from you. To finish today's webinar, thank you for your time today, and we're looking forward on the webinar series that we will be running in 2019. Thank you and goodbye.